Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're going to tackle something that, well, you're clearly super curious about: the environmental impact of cryptocurrency.
Yeah.
You've given us a real mix of sources, academic papers, articles, even a thesis.
Oh, wow.
So clearly you're going deep on this.
Yeah.
We're going to try to figure out if crypto can actually be sustainable. And I think you'll be surprised by some of what we find.
What's fascinating is you're not alone in wanting to know this. The sheer volume of research on this topic shows just how much this question is on everyone's minds.
Okay, so before we get into whether Bitcoin is going to fry the planet or not, we should probably take a step back.
Yeah.
Not everyone listening might be familiar with how cryptocurrency even works in the first place, right?
Absolutely.
Right.
It can seem like this, super complex thing.
Yeah.
But the core concept is surprisingly simple. Imagine a digital ledger that keeps track of all transactions, kind of like a giant global spreadsheet.
Okay, I'm with you. But what makes this different from, say, my bank's records?
The difference is this digital ledger is decentralized. It's not controlled by any single bank, government, or institution. Instead, it's spread out across a network of computers all over the world. This network is called the blockchain.
So it's like a shared Google Doc that everyone can see and verify, but no one can mess with.
Yeah.
One of our sources, a technical note titled The Environmental Implications of Cryptocurrencies, called it tamper-proof. Which I guess makes sense if everyone's got a copy.
That's a great way to think about it. And this decentralized nature is what gives cryptocurrency its security and transparency. But there's a trade-off. Maintaining this system requires a lot of energy.
So this is where we get into the whole environmental impact issue. Several of the articles you sent mention this.
Exactly. Validating transactions on the blockchain, a process known as mining, involves solving complex mathematical problems.
Oh, okay.
And to solve these problems quickly, miners use powerful computers that consume a significant amount of electricity.
Okay, so the more people use and mine cryptocurrency, the more energy gets guzzled.
That's the gist of it. And when you consider that some cryptocurrencies, like Bitcoin, have millions of users worldwide, the energy consumption adds up quickly. One source even dropped this staggering statistic. Bitcoin mining consumes more energy annually than entire countries, like Argentina. We're talking 150 terawatt hours.
Wow, that's more than I use in a year. By a lot.
To put it into perspective, that's enough to power all the homes in a major city for an entire year.
But I did see some pushback on this in the sources. One pointed out that Bitcoin still uses less than 0.1% of the world's total energy consumption.
That's true. The scale of the problem is definitely up for debate. But even a fraction of global energy is still a massive amount. And when you consider the source of that energy...
Which is often fossil fuels, right?
Exactly.
Not exactly helping with climate change.
Exactly. And this energy problem largely stems from the specific way Bitcoin mining works. It uses a system called proof of work, or POW for short. Imagine a race where thousands of miners are competing to solve these complex math problems.
And the winner gets rewarded with Bitcoin.
You got it. So there's a huge incentive to be the fastest, which means miners invest in more and more powerful computers, consuming even more energy. It becomes a sort of energy arms race.
So this POW system, while it keeps things secure, is kind of at the heart of the environmental concern.
Precisely. But don't worry, it's not all doom and gloom. There are other cryptocurrencies out there that are designed to be much more energy efficient.
Okay, that's good to hear. What are some of these greener options? Tell me more.
Well, for example, there's Ethereum, the second largest cryptocurrency after Bitcoin. It recently switched to a different system called proof of stake.
Proof of stake, how is that different? And is it really better for the environment?
It's a completely different approach to validating transactions. Instead of miners competing based on raw computing power, they validate transactions based on how much of the cryptocurrency they own their stake in the network.
So the more you invest, the more likely you are to be chosen to validate transactions and earn rewards. So instead of a race, it's more like a lottery, where having more tickets increases your chances of winning.
That's a great analogy. And the best part, it eliminates the need for all that energy-intensive computation. In fact, when Ethereum made the switch, it reduced its energy usage by a whopping 99.9%, according to one of the research papers you sent.
Wow, almost completely eliminated. That's incredible. So if Ethereum can do it, are other cryptocurrencies following suit?
Absolutely. This shift towards more sustainable systems is a major trend we're seeing across the entire cryptocurrency landscape.
Well, this is all very encouraging. It sounds like the industry is taking the environmental impact seriously and coming up with creative solutions.
They definitely are. And it's not just about switching to more efficient systems. There are also some really innovative approaches to actually using cryptocurrency to benefit the environment.
Hold on, benefit the environment, now that I've got it here.
Well, one of the sources talks about this idea of integrating carbon credits with cryptocurrency.
Carbon credits, isn't that something companies use to offset their emissions?
Exactly. They're tradable certificates representing emission reductions. And the idea is to integrate these credits into the cryptocurrency world, creating a system that tracks and rewards environmental good deeds.
So instead of just focusing on how much energy cryptocurrency uses, we could actually use it to incentivize reducing emissions in other areas. I like where this is going.
One specific example mentioned in the source is Carbon Coin, a cryptocurrency that uses a carbon credit-based ledger and, you guessed it, a proof-of-stake system. It's like double-dipping on the sustainability front.
Okay, so we've got greener systems like proof of stake replacing the energy-hungry proof of work, and now we've got carbon credits entering the picture. What else is being done to make cryptocurrency more sustainable?
Well, some really interesting research is being done on modifying the mining process itself.
Modifying it how? Aren't we trying to move away from mining altogether?
It's not always about scrapping the entire system. Sometimes tweaking how things work within the existing framework can lead to significant improvements.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me about these modifications. What are we talking about here?
One approach is called Green POW, and it's kind of like a qualification system for miners.
A qualification system? How does that work?
Even if a miner doesn't solve the block first and win the Bitcoin reward, they still get rewarded with easier entry into the next round of mining.
Ah, so even though they lose, they still get something out of it. That reduces the need to constantly crank up computing power just to stay ahead of the competition, right?
Exactly. It encourages miners to use energy more efficiently and reduces the overall energy drain of the system.
That's pretty clever. I like it. What else? What other modifications are out there?
Another one that caught my eye is merged mining. It's a way for miners to use the same proof of work to validate blocks on multiple networks simultaneously.
So they're essentially multitasking, which means they're getting more bang for their energy buck.
Precisely. And the source specifically mentioned how this could be especially beneficial for Bitcoin. By reducing the energy expenditure on auxiliary networks, merged mining could help tackle Bitcoin's energy dilemma without compromising its security.
This is all really fascinating. It seems like there are a lot of smart people working hard to make cryptocurrency more environmentally friendly.
There absolutely are. And it's not just about making the technology itself greener. It's about finding ways to use that technology for good.
Which brings us to the Milky Way connection, right? You mentioned this earlier, and I have to admit I'm hooked.
I knew you'd like this one. One of the sources introduced us to Gridcoin, a cryptocurrency that actually harnesses the idle computing power of its network for scientific research.
Wait, hold on. Instead of wasting all that energy on solving pointless math problems for Bitcoin, Gridcoin is putting it to work for actual scientific advancement.
You got it. And get this. Gridcoin is actively contributing to the Milky Way at Home project.
No way! That's the project that's creating a 3D map of our galaxy, right?
The one and only. And it's powered, in part, by a cryptocurrency.
This is amazing. It completely reframes how I think about cryptocurrency. It's not just about money and speculation. It can be a tool for something as incredible as mapping our galaxy.
It's a perfect example of how blockchain technology can go beyond just financial transactions and have a real-world impact on scientific discovery. It also highlights the potential for turning a problem, energy consumption, into a solution for something truly remarkable.
Okay, my mind is officially blown. We've gone from Bitcoin using more energy than Argentina to cryptocurrency helping us map the Milky Way. I think we need to take a moment to digest all of this.
Yeah.
Welcome back to the deep dive. I'm still reeling from that Milky Way revelation. It's incredible to see how this technology is evolving from those energy concerns we talked about to potential tools for scientific discovery.
It really highlights the importance of looking deeper and understanding all the different aspects of cryptocurrency. There's a lot more to it than just Bitcoin.
Totally. And speaking of Bitcoin, while it's great to see these new innovations, we can't ignore that Bitcoin mining is still a big issue, right?
You're right. The sources we've been looking at make it clear that Bitcoin's energy consumption and carbon footprint are serious concerns. It's not something we can just brush aside.
One of the papers even compared its energy use to entire countries. That's a pretty stark comparison. It makes you think twice.
It definitely puts things into perspective, but it's also important to remember that those same sources highlighted some important nuances. For example, we talked about how Bitcoin uses less than 0.1% of the world's total energy consumption.
Right, so it's not quite as simple as saying Bitcoin is destroying the planet. Context matters, right?
Absolutely. And one of the things that often gets overlooked is the location of Bitcoin mining. One of the sources, energy consumption of cryptocurrency networks beyond Bitcoin, even included a helpful chart showing where most of the mining is happening.
So it matters not just how much energy is being used, but also where that energy is coming from.
Exactly. If most of the mining is concentrated in regions that rely heavily on fossil fuels, the environmental impact is going to be much higher. But if it's happening in places with access to cleaner energy sources, the picture changes significantly.
This makes me think back to what we were discussing earlier about transparency. Knowing where and how Bitcoin is being mined is crucial for truly understanding its environmental impact.
I completely agree. And the sources also highlighted the potential for using renewable energy to power these mining operations. Imagine Bitcoin mines running on solar, wind, even geothermal energy.
That would certainly paint a different picture. Are there any real-world examples of this happening?
There are. Several initiatives are already underway to shift Bitcoin mining toward more sustainable energy sources.
That's encouraging to hear. What kind of initiatives? Can you give me some specifics?
One example is in Norway, where a company called CryptoVolt is using hydroelectric power, a renewable energy source, to power its Bitcoin mining operations. They're taking advantage of Norway's abundant hydro resources to create a more environmentally friendly mining setup.
So they're basically turning the power of water into Bitcoin. It's pretty cool. Are there similar projects happening elsewhere?
Definitely. In Texas, there's a growing trend of Bitcoin miners partnering with wind and solar farms. They're essentially tapping into the excess energy produced by these renewable sources, reducing waste and lessening their reliance on fossil fuels.
It's interesting to see how market forces are driving this change. As the cost of renewable energy continues to decrease, it becomes a more attractive option for miners looking to reduce their operating expenses.
Exactly. And it's not just about the financial incentives. There's also growing pressure from investors and consumers who are demanding more sustainable practices from the cryptocurrency industry.
It seems like sustainability is no longer a niche concern. It's becoming a mainstream expectation.
Absolutely. And this shift in mindset is really encouraging. It shows that we, as a society, are starting to prioritize environmental responsibility, even in emerging fields like cryptocurrency.
Speaking of sustainability and making conscious choices, we touched on this earlier, but I think it's worth diving a bit deeper into the idea of carbon credits and cryptocurrency.
It's definitely a fascinating development. Remember, these are tradable certificates representing emission reductions, and several of the sources explored how integrating them into the crypto world could create a more transparent and accountable system.
One source even described it as a way to track and reward environmental good deeds. It's a powerful concept.
And it goes beyond just offsetting emissions. By incorporating carbon credits into cryptocurrency, we can incentivize sustainable practices across various industries.
So it's not just about making cryptocurrency itself greener. It's about using it as a tool to drive sustainability efforts in a wider range of sectors.
Precisely. Imagine a system where companies are rewarded with cryptocurrency for reducing their carbon footprint or implementing eco-friendly practices. It could create a powerful positive feedback loop.
I'm seeing a lot of potential here, and I remember you mentioned Carbon Coin as a specific example of this in action.
Yes. Carbon Coin is a fascinating project. It combines a carbon credit-based ledger with a proof-of-stake system, creating a truly sustainable cryptocurrency.
I'm really curious to see how these initiatives evolve and what kind of impact they can have on the world. It feels like we're on the cusp of something really significant here.
I agree. And this brings us to a crucial point. Even as the industry moves towards more sustainable practices, the question of individual responsibility remains.
What do you mean by individual responsibility in this context?
As individuals, we have the power to choose which cryptocurrencies we support and invest in. We can educate ourselves about their environmental impact and make choices that align with our values.
So it's not just about waiting for the industry to clean up its act. We can actively participate in shaping a more sustainable crypto landscape through our own decisions.
Exactly. And we can also demand greater transparency from the industry. We can ask questions like, where is this cryptocurrency being mined? What is its energy source? What is its carbon footprint?
Informed consumers can be a powerful force for change. By asking the right questions and making conscious choices, we can help steer the industry in the right direction.
And it's not just about individual choices. We can also advocate for policies that encourage sustainable practices within the crypto space. Things like carbon taxes, renewable energy incentives, and stricter regulations for mining operations can all play a role.
It's a multifaceted challenge that requires a multifaceted approach. And it's exciting to see how much progress is already being made.
It really is. And as we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I think it's important to remember that sustainability is not a destination. It's an ongoing journey.
It's about constantly striving to do better, to find innovative solutions, and to hold ourselves and the industry accountable for the choices we make.
Well said. And in this final part of our deep dive, we'll explore some of the ethical considerations and look ahead to the future of cryptocurrency in a world that's increasingly focused on environmental responsibility.
Welcome back to the deep dive. So far, we've covered a lot of ground. The good, the bad, and the Milky Way, of course.
Yeah.
But I think there's one more crucial piece of the puzzle we need to explore. Where does cryptocurrency go from here, especially as the world becomes increasingly focused on sustainability?
It's a question everyone seems to be asking, from individual investors to global policymakers. The sources you sent really highlight this growing tension between cryptocurrency's potential and its environmental costs.
Yeah, some of the articles were pretty optimistic, emphasizing how blockchain technology can revolutionize finance and offer greater access to financial services for people who've been traditionally excluded.
And those points are valid. Cryptocurrency has the potential to disrupt traditional financial systems and create a more inclusive and equitable financial landscape. But can it achieve those goals while also being environmentally sustainable? That's the million-dollar question.
It seems like there's no easy answer. Some sources argue that the benefits of blockchain technology, like increased transparency and reduced corruption, outweigh the environmental drawbacks.
And that's a perfectly valid argument. But others express concern that focusing solely on these benefits might lead us down a path where we prioritize short-term gains over long-term sustainability. It's a classic dilemma. Progress versus preservation.
It feels like we're at a crossroads. Do we embrace cryptocurrency's potential and hope that the industry figures out the sustainability piece along the way? Or do we take a more cautious approach, potentially stifling innovation, but prioritizing environmental responsibility?
It's a tough call, and there's no one-size-fits-all answer. One of the sources, blockchain's roles in meeting key supply chain management objectives, actually offered an interesting perspective on this.
No, what was that?
It argued that instead of viewing blockchain technology as solely a financial tool, we should consider its broader applications. What if we could harness the power of blockchain to create a more sustainable and equitable world in other ways?
That's a fascinating idea. Are there specific examples of this happening?
There are. The source specifically mentioned how blockchain could be used to track the origins of products, ensuring ethical sourcing and reducing counterfeiting. This would not only benefit consumers, but also create a more transparent and accountable supply chain, minimizing waste and environmental damage.
So by applying blockchain technology to industries beyond finance, we could potentially leverage its benefits for good without necessarily contributing to the energy consumption problem associated with cryptocurrency mining.
Exactly. It's about thinking outside the box and exploring all the possibilities that blockchain technology offers. It's not just about cryptocurrency. It's about finding innovative solutions to real-world problems.
This really shifts the conversation, doesn't it? It's no longer just about whether cryptocurrency is good or bad for the environment. It's about how we can use this powerful technology to create a more sustainable future across the board.
I couldn't have said it better myself. And this brings us to another crucial aspect of this whole conversation: the financial implications. One of the sources delved into how energy costs can significantly impact the profitability of cryptocurrency mining.
That makes sense. If the cost of energy goes up, it cuts into the profits of miners, right?
Exactly. And as energy costs continue to rise, due to factors like increasing demand and the transition to renewable sources, miners will be increasingly incentivized to seek out more cost-effective solutions.
So, in a way, the rising cost of energy could actually drive the cryptocurrency industry towards more sustainable practices.
It's a definite possibility. As miners seek to maximize their profits, they'll naturally gravitate towards cheaper and more efficient energy sources. And right now, renewable energy is becoming increasingly competitive with fossil fuels.
This is where those initiatives we discussed earlier come into play, right? Things like Bitcoin mines powered by hydroelectricity in Norway and wind farms in Texas.
Precisely. Those projects are at the forefront of this shift towards a greener cryptocurrency industry. And as these projects prove their viability and profitability, we'll likely see more and more miners follow suit.
This is all very encouraging. It feels like a win-win situation. We get a more sustainable cryptocurrency industry, and miners get to keep their profits. But there's always a flip side to every coin, right?
That's true. While this transition to renewable energy is a positive development, there are some potential downsides to consider as well.
Like what? What are some of the potential drawbacks?
One concern is that this shift could create a barrier to entry for smaller miners. Setting up large-scale mining operations powered by renewable energy requires significant capital investment. Smaller players, who may not have those resources, could be squeezed out of the market.
So there's a risk that the very solutions aimed at making the cryptocurrency industry more sustainable could also make it more centralized and less accessible.
That's a valid concern. It highlights the need for careful consideration and a balanced approach. We need to ensure that as we transition to a greener crypto landscape, we don't inadvertently create new problems or exacerbate existing inequalities.
This reminds me of the point you made earlier about the broader implications of blockchain technology. It's not just about financial gain, it's about using this technology to create a more just and equitable world.
Exactly. And this brings us back to the central question of this deep dive. What does the future hold for cryptocurrency?
After all this discussion, I have to admit, I'm still not sure I have a clear answer. It seems like there are so many factors at play.
You're right. The future of cryptocurrency is uncertain. It's a rapidly evolving landscape with new technologies, regulations, and social trends constantly emerging. But one thing is clear. Sustainability is no longer an optional extra. It's a core requirement for any technology that aspires to have a lasting impact on the world.
It's no longer enough to simply offer innovative solutions or disrupt traditional systems. Cryptocurrency, like any other industry, needs to demonstrate its commitment to environmental responsibility.
Absolutely. And the sources we've explored throughout this deep dive suggest that the industry is starting to recognize this. From proof-of-stake systems to carbon credit integration, the push for sustainability is gaining momentum.
And it's not just coming from within the industry. Investors and consumers are increasingly demanding more transparency and accountability from the crypto world.
People are asking tough questions about energy use, carbon footprints, and the ethical implications of their investments. And these questions are forcing the industry to evolve and adapt.
So the future of cryptocurrency ultimately hinges on its ability to reconcile innovation with environmental responsibility.
Precisely. It needs to find ways to harness its disruptive potential for good, creating solutions that benefit both people and the planet. It's a challenge, no doubt, but it's also an incredible opportunity.
And on that note, I think it's time to wrap up this deep dive. We've covered a lot of ground exploring the complex relationship between cryptocurrency and the environment. We've seen the challenges, the innovations, and the potential for positive change.
And as we conclude, we want to leave you with this final thought. Knowing what you now know about the environmental impact of cryptocurrency, what role will you play in shaping its future?
Will you invest in cryptocurrencies that align with your values? Will you advocate for more sustainable practices within the industry? Will you use your voice and your choices to push for a greener and more equitable crypto landscape?
The future is unwritten. The choices we make today will determine the direction cryptocurrency takes and its ultimate impact on our world. Be informed, be engaged, and be part of the solution.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We hope you found it informative and thought-provoking. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep.